What would you say kind of the pressure going into that fight was? What were the feelings going in making that ring walk?
What was driving me was actually those kids, the millions of Salvadorians that are watching me to become champion of the world for my country.
Welcome to Mano a Mano with Diego Esquivel. Today, I am joined by former two-time Super Featherweight champ and Salvadorian legend, Carlos El Famoso Hernandez. Carlos, what's going on, champ?
How you doing, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for just coming on, speaking with us today. This is probably the biggest guest we had so far. So thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate it. It's a pleasure here being with you, and hopefully this would be the beginning of many other big ones that you'll have in the future.
Appreciate that, man. Appreciate it. So just jumping straight in, I read somewhere that your ring name El Famoso came from your grandfather for being famous for getting into fights with the kids in the neighborhood. Is that true?
That is correct. It was more for being that menace in that neighborhood, always being in trouble. But it's Carlos Famoso Hernandez. Everyone always says El Famoso, which is cool. I don't care. But at the end, really, my grandfather says El Famoso. Yeah, he would say El Famoso, but when I fight, it's Carlos Famoso Hernandez. But at the end, in the beginning, he would always say este cipote, which cipote means kid. Este cipote is famoso because I was just always getting into trouble, making kids cry. I was always taking their candy or their cars, their games, their toys, their dolls. Because I would. It wasn't just guys. I would take the girls' toys as well. I was just a little like Dennis the Menace, but in Latino style.
And can you walk me through that, just that time as a youngster and how did getting into those little altercations and scuffles with the kids translate into you getting into a gym for the first time and just kind of using your hands for the sport like boxing for the first time?
Well, I mean, I was always a crazy hyper kid. Um, I don't know. It's just maybe there was just something wrong with me. I don't know. But at the end, uh, it was my father that put me into a boxing gym at age 15 or 16. I started at a boxing gym in Paramount, the city of Paramount in LA, mainly to stay away from gang violence and the drugs that was in the street. It was plaguing our streets in that time with crack and all that. So, my father didn't want me to fall into the gangs that was in the area as well. And so I had a lot of friends that were, gang members and, just doing bad, crazy things. So he took a bunch of us, myself included, to the gym so we could, try to, change our ways. And at the end, I was the only one that stayed, and I stayed for good, really.
And are you the only one in your family that has a legacy in fighting, or did you first take it up as a way to kind of, as you said, get out of trouble and start a new path?
Well, yeah, boxing. I didn't, I wasn't just boxing. I was always fighting. I was a troubled kid. I had problems. I don't know if psychological or what, but at the end, I needed to steer that I needed to channel that kind of energy, that negative energy, into something positive. And my father first took me at 14 to karate, where at 17 years old, I was the United States national champion in karate at the Caesar's Palace, 1988, I believe it was. And so I was a teenager, national champion in karate, but I wanted something more because karate did help me with my attitude, with the way I was acting with elders and just with people in general, and it did help me. But boxing was mainly my outlet for that inner anger that I had, because I had it. I guess some kids have it, some kids don't, but I was one that had problems, that had some kind of issues with life, and boxing, thank God, was my escape. And to this day, thank God, I stayed with boxing.
And I think it's very interesting to hear that as a youngster, you were getting into all sorts of trouble with the other kids because in your professional career, you could say that you were known for your sportsmanship and just overall respect for opponents. How did you maintain that kind of approach in just such an aggressive sport?
That's a great question. I think, with karate, with the lifestyle that after growing up and understanding traveling and going to the homeland of El Salvador and seeing how people respect each other and not being, like, what are you looking at, to my own family or something like that. It was more of an awakening and learning how to adjust and control my inner demons into something more of a positive person to because in El Salvador we really didn't have many positive people to look up to. So I wanted to be that guy, uh, especially when my mother's like telling me you have a whole nation behind you. You have to conduct yourself in a better manner. You can't get in trouble. You can't fall into drugs. You have many millions of kids that are watching you. And so that did, like wake me up and say, you know what, it's true. I have all these kids that are looking after me, and I want to walk the right path and just try to conduct myself in a proper manner and not be one of these wild animals and fighting in the street now. That those days are over. I don't get paid for that.
And going straight into just probably the monumental moment of your career, describing the moment you became the first ever world champion from El Salvador, what would you say kind of the pressure going into that fight was? As you said, your mother saying you have these people looking up to you, almost kind of setting an example. What were the feelings going in, making that ring walk? And what did it mean to you and your country to succeed in that manner?
No, a great question. Really, you're like a professional. But let me tell you that I felt a little. I wouldn't say nervous because I don't like that word. I don't like to feel that. I didn't feel the only time I felt nervous in my fight was my first fight, and I had a draw, and then I promised myself that I wasn't going to go through that again, and I did it. What was driving me was actually those kids, the millions of Salvadorians that are watching me to become champion of the world for my country. In fact, having the president of my country be there ringside, I mean, many people could say that's very nerve-wracking and that's a lot of pressure.
Es el primer campeón mundial que tiene El Salvador. Con sus puños y su corazón nos ha llenado de orgullo.
But at that time, my manager was my wife, and my then wife, and she's also a sports psychologist. So she helped me channel all that energy into focusing into what was to be my night, and that was the win. And all I could see myself doing was winning. That's all I saw, is throwing my combinations, landing my combinations, going through the motions in my mind, and and seeing myself being raised and thanking God for the victory. And that's exactly what happened.
And throughout your career, you faced many tough opponents, Chanito Hernandez, Floyd Mayweather, Eric Morales. What did you learn from those kind of experiences and how did they shape your career?
Well, those are guys that I lost to. Those are very, very the best fighters. I mean, those guys are legends in my sport. But I learned how to lose, because there has to be a way to learn how to lose. I don't want to lose with in a bad manner, throwing bad words or that feeling that negative energy. What I knew was that I gave my best in every loss that I've had. And that to me was more important than just winning. It was more of giving my best. And I knew that giving my best was winning already.
And I wanted to ask something. One fight that I've heard you mention before that was once broadcasted on Solo Boxeo on Telefutura, and it's hard to find footage of it now, but it was your fight against Douglas Vidal in Austin, Texas. Is that something you can recall?
Yeah. That's the guy that really rang my bell at about, like, I think it was the first round. I don't know what minute, but yeah, he clearly rung my bell. I remember seeing just white lights everywhere, but he didn't see that. The guy had like 25 wins. I don't know how many losses, but like 24 knockouts. So the guy had a very high ratio of knockout power, and I know why. I felt it, but I was able to recover, and I was able to stop him in that same round. So yeah, that's a guy that I will never forget. One of the hardest punchers I've faced in my career.
And even when I was trying to do research on that fight and I was trying to look up some of Video's past fights, I could only find one video of him facing a fighter from Panama. And it was like a 2-round war going back and forth, dropping each other. And I really wanted to find footage of this fight right here. And as you described it, when he kind of stunned you in the first round, but you came back to knock him out in that same round, what's the importance of kind of keeping your composure in a moment like that, especially with the bright lights around you, feeling a little stunned, knowing the cameras are on you, knowing there's so many people around you, and then executing that knockout in that same round?
Yeah, well, there's an exercise that we actually work on, and that's trying to get yourself dizzy and stop and start shadow boxing, so you could simulate like if you were hurt, and you have to keep your composure and kind of hide the fact that you're hurt, and be a little bit more composed and throw the combinations that you need to throw for a guy, so the guy doesn't see that you're hurt. And so those are the things that I think helped me out in my career and in my boxing, because not that I've been hurt many times. I've probably been hurt in my career that I could remember maybe twice. That was once against Villarreal, and another one with Steve Forbes. The other ones that I've been dropped in, I really don't remember being hurt. I just was I was stunned. I went down, but that was at the end of my career. But when I was, I think, more at my best, would have to be against Douglas Villarreal and against Stevie Forbes.
And with that success, how would you say boxing overall shaped your personal life and the people around you? And especially for those people in El Salvador, I did read somewhere that, it almost felt like all eyes were on you every time that you were broadcasted a fight from El Salvador. So what is that like? And how does that impact you? How does that shape you as a fighter and as a person?
Well, it does shape you. And I feel like, I do have sort of like a magnifying glass on me, and I have to conduct myself in a proper manner, not be a wild man and think, I could do whatever I want. It's not like that. I have kids, I have children that I want to be a good role model to. And the millions and thousands of kids that follow me in El Salvador, I belong to a group that I don't know if you want to say donates. We donated our time and our love to orphanages in El Salvador, especially those kids that are disabled and that are left unattended to fend for themselves. And when this orphanage takes these kids, those are the kids that I love, and I really are in my heart. And almost every time I go to El Salvador, I have to visit them, because they bring me so much love. They give me so much love, but it leaves me so much satisfaction to see that these kids are taken care of at this orphanage called Padre Vito Guarato.
And that's amazing. We're talking the sport of boxing now. How would you say the sport has evolved over the years, and how do you view the changes in boxing since your retirement?
I see it evolving. The thing is, I think the fighters are less to expose themselves as before. We were more fighters that were kind of like kamikaze type fighters that would just go in and go both head to head, kind of like Rams. And so here, I feel there's a little bit more caution. I feel like they want to last a little longer in the sport, maybe, but or they feel like they're on social media. They want that pretty face. They don't want to get hurt. back in I think those rocky days and before, it was just who was tougher basically. And obviously when it evolves, I like myself, I want to evolve. I want my fighters to evolve, but I also want them to attack. I also want them to be in that little phone booth kind of fight, because you're never going to know when a guy or a fighter is going to be on you, and you have to learn how to adapt. Obviously, if he's going to be on you, then you have to use range, distance, and that's where you have to be smart and adjust. But I think the way it's evolved today, more than anything, I think it's evolved in the backside, outside of the boxing, which is the business of boxing. I think there it's really hurt the sport of boxing, because now we're getting fights that have been like 2-3 years past when it should have happened before. And some of the fighters that fight later on, it doesn't really attract me. It's like a fight that should have happened a while ago. And like the Spence Crawford, great fight, but I think the fight could have happened maybe a year or two sooner. Mayweather Pacquiao, that was 10 years too late. So it was just kind of like disappointing in my view. But I think that's what's hurting a little bit of boxing, is these guys are like, they don't want to face each other now. Like back in the day, you're going to fight the guy who's on top. Simple as that. And there was no, you're going to fight him later. These guys were fighting every other month.
And I think I wanted to ask too, because I've heard you express interest about opening a gym in Los Angeles. What kind of interests you about working with those fighters, and not only the physical aspect, working with them, but also the business aspect of boxing too? Do you feel like that's important knowledge to pass on as well to young and up and coming fighters? Because as we discussed, business side of boxing can be a little shaky nowadays. Do you feel like it's important to pass on your knowledge of the business to people that are rising up in the ranks?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've been there, done that. I've learned and I've adjusted. I mean, there's a lot of things that I regret doing that I wish I didn't do back when I was fighting. And I'm talking about the business part of it. Now, I think there's things that I think some kids could learn from. But I want to pass on, especially to my Salvadorian brothers, or Central American brothers that are in the LA area. I would love to give them pass on that knowledge. But that knowledge that I have is more of that Mexican style, because the Mexicano, the style of Mexicano, those are the people really that made me. And I'm very happy that those are the people that really supported me from the beginning, because the Salvadorian fans, there weren't really many. And so I had to go out there like 3 days before my fight. I had to go to the nightclub at 1-2 in the morning and let them know I'm fighting down the street at the Forum. So please come and support me. When the Mexicanos, they were already there. They knew me, that they would read La Opinión and know that I was going to be fighting. And I thank God, that I had that Mexicano support, especially now that when I was married to a Mexicana, to a Mexican lady. And I felt that closeness with Mexico, because I did also live in Mexico with her. And with my kids now being Salvadoran Mexican, a new generation that's coming out, I'm glad that my kids are a part of that. It's that new generation that's happening. And I want to pass on to that new generation my philosophy, my way of thinking, but in the boxing, obviously. And who knows, maybe even outside, I could be that good role model for whoever needs it.
Right. And speaking of future generation of Salvadorians, I think people can confidently say you were, of course, known as the last great from El Salvador, but there's so much talent coming in from all different parts of the world. What would you say, where do you see the future of Salvadorian fighters, even those that are just representing their heritage? Someone like Mark Castro, who I know you've met, rising up the ranks. Would you say there's hope for future Salvadorian champions and athletes?
Absolutely. There's Mark Castro, and then there's other fighters like Sam Contreras, who's an amateur fighter, but who represents El Salvador, but just won a tournament in Spain just a few days ago or last weekend. So you have up and coming fighters, but the fighters from El Salvador, I have to say, need a little bit more of that kind of training that you have to dig down deep, because you have Salvadorians that are great fighters. There's this other Salvadorian who's actually a professional fighter who's undefeated. I think he's 4-0 or 5-0. He's an up-and-coming fighter named Christian. I forgot his last name, but he's fighting, I believe, in either Nicaragua or Costa Rica in the next couple of days, or next weekend or something like that. And the guy is a great fighter, but we need more of that. I think what we lack in El Salvador is a little bit more corazon, more, because I feel like they get scared a lot with the punches, and they're afraid to really give themselves to get hit, and I think that's something that I learned with the Mexican culture is, vamos, cabrón, we're gonna work hard, we're gonna get hit. This is boxing. It's not a game. This is a sport of hit or don't get hit, and so that's how we have to work it. You have to have that type of mentality of this is not a game of dominoes. This is it could be either life or death.
And the Mexican style, when people say the Mexican style, what comes to your head, and how does that shape just kind of the way you fought in the ring? Of course, you were being surrounded by Mexican fans all the time. They wanted to see just blood spilled all the time. So when we say the Mexican style, what comes to your mind?
Chavez, Julio Cesar Chavez, and the many other greats. But I see, obviously the best one to me is Julio Cesar Chavez, because he would come in and he would bob and weave, make you miss. He had really good inside technical fighting, but not technical outside. He wasn't, waiting like Finito Lopez. He's another great Mexican style like Juan Manuel Marquez, but their styles of inside is different. That's when Chavez, and that's what I think the fans want to see. The fans want that, and I want it. I wanted to give that to the fans, and so that's why when I fought, I thought of not just, obviously I thought of winning, but I thought of the fans. I want to give them their money's worth and give it my best and my all. Being in there, trying to take his shot and come back with mine, but obviously be smart about it. I didn't want to end up being punch drunk or anything like that. That's why I had to learn how to move, had to learn how to get away from his punch, but come back with my combinations, because it is a damn shame, I get to see some of these older legends, and sometimes it's hard to understand them because they have pugilistic dementia, and it's pretty sad.
About that, what do you kind of think about exhibitions of when you see some of these old fighters coming back, whether it's Chavez, Travieso Arce, whether it was Tyson and Jones coming back a couple years ago, when you see that, what really crosses your mind?
Well, I do understand. I mean, I went through a depression, just giving it up, because it's something that I did very well, and that's the only thing I really know how to do. I didn't really know how to do anything else. I didn't go to university. I did go to the University of Boxing, and that's the best I knew how to deal with with life. But now you have to, that's where boxing comes in as well. The dedication, the working out, the waking up, the eating right. And so I want to put that dedication now into something else, all that energy into something else, into business, into growing my Famoso Realty business, or my Famoso Productions promotional company. I want to grow. I don't want to just stay there and boxing that was it. So, the world owes me everything because I did what I did. No, I got to keep going, and I want to be that role model for those kids, or for my children, to see that it doesn't stop just at boxing and the career is over. No, we keep going, and we have to keep going, because if not, then we die.
Right. And Carlos, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you coming on the show today. Before we close out, I did see on your social media, you put that on November 16th in the LA area. you were going to attend La Primera Expo de Mayoreo,
Yes.
where you will be talking about basically your journey of hard work and determination. What made you want
Correct.
to join that event, and what can people expect from attending?
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, this is more of a kind of like a motivational class about how I worked my butt off to not just be a boxer or reach the championship for a country and go through the pressures and all those things, the women that come around you and being, married to that one woman. It's just, the thing is, now I want to use that energy into the business part of my life. And I want people to understand that, it just doesn't stop at boxing, it keeps going. And just like we spoke earlier about it, and I want them to know my journey. It wasn't an easy journey. But what is easy? I mean, some people may come to easy, but it didn't come to me. It didn't come from my children. That's why I work hard, so they didn't have to box and they didn't have to go through things like this.
Right. And I hope that is a success. That sounds like a great experience. And I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate your time and you wanting to interview me. And I think you have a great future, and I wish you all the best.
Appreciate you so much, Carlos. You have an amazing day.
Grind's on, I'm just trying to get the bands in. Take man, and you know we get the hands in. Throw fists, and you know that they're landing. We stand out, cause you know we can't stand in. We look good, we ain't ever look stranded. In a cute top down, tunes banging. The YG's outside just standing. Round the corner is a youth trying to bank it. With the bro